Happy Sunday to you. Man, that's a... Thinking about that was they're playing that song. I'm like, that's like kind of like New Life's favorite song right there. You know, you just kind of feel it a little bit more. A couple things as we're diving in, want to make you aware of. First off, next Sunday is our back to school party, and so a couple things with that. One is we'll have some inflatables out there. They're like carnival themed, and they're going to be really fun. I think they're getting one of those things that you like smack that goes up and. If you're wondering what if that didn't help, I don't know, but it's one of those deals. And so you don't want to miss that. We're going to have food trucks as well. And it's a great event, really. The reason why we do this is twofold. One is one of our core values of the church is that we want to be a church that's fun. And so we believe in that, and so we invest in fun. But the other reason is it's a great opportunity for you to bring your friends to church. It's an easy invite, and one of the ways we try to make it really easy, if it's anyone whose first time, they get free food from the food trucks. On us is our way of saying thank you for checking us out. And so we'd love for you to be part of it. You can share it on Facebook and invite your friends. That'll be really fun. And then also what we've got going on is 3 of the next 4 Sundays, we actually have opportunities to be baptized in water. And so if you've not been baptized in water since you put your faith in Jesus, there's really not a better time for you to do it than one of those 3 Sundays. And I was reading the book of Acts yesterday. It's the story of the church at Philippi. And it was so interesting. This lady, Lydia, she puts her faith in Jesus, and as soon as she puts her faith in Jesus, she goes and she gets baptized in water. And then if you go a little bit further, there's this like miracle in a prison, and the same thing happened. Like this jailer, like he puts his faith in Jesus, and immediately he goes and he gets baptized. And it shows us a pattern of Scripture, is that after you put your faith in Jesus, you should be baptized in water. Jesus was baptized. And so if you're sitting here like looking for that like push, this would be that, and we want to make it real easy for you to do that. And so in the seat back in front of you, there is a connection card. You can just mark baptism on there with your name, and we will make sure that we are ready for you. But we really do believe in that here. But hey, we're in the final week of our series, Overwhelmed. And as we kind of land the plane on this series, I was thinking about just like the thing that overwhelms me the most. We've talked a little about the past. We've talked about the present, things to do to help us when we feel overwhelmed. But I think for me, if I were to just be real honest, I tend to get most overwhelmed when I think about the future. Because when you think about the future is basically, it's a blank slate of uncertainty. And one of the things that's true with things in the future too, and this is just, I've learned from my personal experience, is that you can plan really, really well. And even if you plan really, really well, like, you still don't have as much control as you wish you did. And I was thinking about this, like, so last couple of years, we went to Disney World on vacation, and we got really into it, like a level with which I'm embarrassed to admit, to be honest with you, but it's okay, we're safe. And so one of the things that we do at Disney World is there's this, it's called rope dropping, okay? And so what happens is you get to the park at ungodly early, and you stand behind this rope, okay? And then they drop it, and you run to the ride. That's it. Like, and you run because if you don't get there in time, then you're going to have to wait like an hour for something. And so this is actually a picture of us running to a ride at Disney World right there. That is real. And the funny thing is, just to show you like how I need God to work in my life, a lady just told us to stop running when I took that picture, and we did not stop running. We just kept going because we paid way too much money to be there, so we were going to do what we wanted to do. But so this one year we went, and we go to Disney World, and we're like, okay, we're going to rope drop Splash Mountain. So we get there really early, and we're like, all right, we're going to Splash Mountain. They drop the rope, we start running, and we get there. And as soon as we get to Splash Mountain, they're like, oh, sorry, the ride is closed. Which I'm like, man, maybe you guys like stop making movies people didn't care about. Like, you could just fix the rides, but whatever. So I was like, okay. So then I get there, and the ride's broken down. But right next to it, there is this Big Thunder Mountain. Okay, so like we'll just go to Big Thunder Mountain, and it's cool. Like, we'll be all right. And so we run over there, and it's closed down. And so, like, if you're unfamiliar with Disney World, that's okay, but I'll just tell you this. Space Mountain is on the other side of the park. It might as well be 4 miles away. And so we're like, okay, well, then I guess we're just going to bust it to Space Mountain. And so then we go to Space Mountain. By the time we get there, 1 hour wait. We had a perfect plan. I watched all the blogs. I knew that you go left at the park. I did everything that I was supposed to do, and even though that was the case, it still didn't work. Showing us something about the future, right? And it's that the future, as much as we would like to control it, we don't have as much control as we'd like. And that's Disney, that's fun. But the truth is, when you think of life, right, there are things that are future that are far more overwhelming. And as much as you try to dictate what happens, it can make you feel overwhelmed. And we come to a text this morning where the Israelites are looking to the future. And they're looking to, God has promised that, hey, you get this land. There's this land that I promised to give you, and it's yours. Like, you go there. But what happened last week, we looked at this story where the Israelites, they're kind of like hanging out. Moses goes up a mountain. He's getting the 10 Commandments from God. And while Moses is gone, the Israelites are like, hey, Moses is gone. They kind of forget about Moses, and they forget about the Lord, and they build this cow, and they worship it. And as they're worshiping this cow they built, Moses hears about it from God. He comes down the mountain, and he's like really frustrated. But the text ended last week with basically Moses doing what Jesus does. Just kind of stands in the gap and praying for forgiveness. And God says, hey, I'm going to forgive these people. And as it comes to that part, now there's this like new kind of thing happening as they're heading into the future, and God's considering these people and how they are. He basically says to them, maybe it's not in your best interest that I go forward with you into the future. And that's where we pick up in chapter 33 in verse 1, and it says this. It says, the Lord said to Moses, depart, go up from here, you and the people whom you've brought up out of the land of Egypt, to the land of which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, to your offspring I will give it. I'll send an angel before you, and I will drive out the Canaanites, the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Go up to a land flowing with milk and honey, but I will not go up among you, lest I consume you on the way, for you are a stiff-necked people. Kind of feels like, like when you're kids, like as a parent, kids kind of really drive you crazy. And you're like, you need to go to your room before I say, you know what I mean? Like, you just need to get away from Dad. Dad needs a minute. Like, it's one of those kind of things. Like, and that's kind of what God's saying to them. It's just a little bit different. He's like, he calls these people stiff-necked. And it's a really great way to describe this people, because what he means when he says they're stiff-necked is it's basically that they're just going to do whatever they want. They're going to go in this direction. There's nothing you can do to change their mind. That they've got the course that they're on. And God's like, I can't lead a stiff-necked people. Part of me leading a people is that I tell them where to go. I tell them how to live. And you are stiff-necked. Clearly, you've shown that that's not something we'll do. And so God's realizing, he's like, man, I'm not going to go, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to send an angel. Basically kind of promising something that I think that a lot of us would probably maybe think about, where he's like, hey, I'm going to give you what you want. I'm going to give you this land that I promised you, but I'm not going to put any of the expectations of living for me on you. You'll just kind of get to do your own thing. But when the land is conquered, I think there's this assumption the angel will go through, conquer all the people, and the angel will leave, and they'll just have this land. And the people, they get this word, and they respond kind of in a way that you wouldn't expect. I mean, mind you, this is the people that last week built a cow and worshipped it and called it God. But I think that their heart is different. You see that in verse 4. Look at this. It says, when the people heard this disastrous word, they mourned, and no one put on his ornaments. For the Lord had said to Moses, say to the people of Israel, you are a stiff-necked people. If for a single moment I should go up among you, I would consume you. So now take off your ornaments that I may know what to do with you. Therefore the people of Israel stripped themselves of their ornaments from Mount Oreb onward. Like, there's some awareness here with these people. They're realizing, maybe, like, they're kind of have this realization where they're like, hey, we want to be God's people. We don't want success without him. We don't want to go forward if it means that he is not with us in the future. And they realize what this word is. I think Moses' editorial comment is really interesting there, where he calls it a disastrous word. Because it's actually really, really disastrous for a person to get what they want without God. Because what happens is eventually what you realize is that success can be really, really hollow. And what God does is he gives purpose to the things that we do. And what they're seeing is they're like, you know what, we might get the land, but we don't have him, and we would rather have him than have the land. It's like this one moment where they're really self-aware, which is so, so different than last week. Last week, they built a calf and called it the Lord. Last week, they're like, we're going to let this thing lead us. And then some scholars kind of came together and made an image of what they thought it looked like. I actually have a picture of it. They're like, this is going to be our God. Which, doesn't even look like any, I don't know. But they're like, they were willing to follow that. And now they're like, we can't go. We don't even want to go with an angel if God's not with us. So what ends up happening is Moses ends up going into this place where it's him and the Lord, and he prays this prayer to God, which really, as you think about an uncertain future, is the type of prayer that we should pray. Look at this here. Verse 12, Moses said to the Lord, "See, you say to me, bring up this people, but you've not let me know whom you'll send with me. Yet you have said, I know you by name, and you have also found favor in my sight. Now therefore, if I found favor in your sight, please show me your ways, that I may know you, in order to find favor in your sight. Consider too that this nation is your people." This is Moses' prayer. And God says, verse 14, "My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest." Now I think that's interesting. Is we're even, this is kind of more of a topical style of message. What's interesting about it is you could stop right there. Moses is praying and he's like, "Hey, God, I'd really like it if you'd go with me." And God says, "Okay." Verse 14, you could end there. He says, "My presence will go with you and I'll give you rest." That's exactly what they asked for. They say, "Okay, fine, I'm not going to send the angel. I'm going to go with you. That's fine." But what I think is interesting is that Moses, he keeps talking. Look at how it keeps going in verse 15. Okay, so God's like, "I'll go with you, my presence will go with you, and I'll give you rest." Verse 15, and Moses said to him, "If your presence will not go with me, don't bring us up from here. For how shall it be known that I found favor in your sight, I and your people? Is it not that you're going with us so that we're distinct, I and your people, from every other people on the face of the earth?" And the Lord said to Moses, "This very thing that you have spoken I will do, for you have found favor in my sight, and I know you by name." Now this is okay, I think it's really interesting that he asks twice. Verse 14, it's enough. "My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest." And then I started just kind of thinking, why did he do that? Why does he ask again? Why isn't verse 14 good enough? And then I kind of started thinking about my relationship with God. And the times where I felt like God has given me direction, I feel like I always want more. So even this week I was praying for my kids. And they're getting ready to go to school, and I was praying that God would be with them and bless them. And I remember as I was praying, I really sensed God's presence. He was giving me peace. That it was going to be good. And even as in that moment, I sensed his peace, he was going to be with me, or with my kids, it went away. And I'm like, "Hey, could you bring that back? Hey," and then it's like, "Hey, I spoke to you. I gave you peace. This is good." And I'm like, a little bit more. There have been times where I've prayed for direction on things in my life, okay? Where I've been like, "Hey, God, this decision, I got to decide. I got to make this, whatever." And I pray. And God has been very gracious to, at times, give me, people who will tell me, "Hey, this is something," and it's like, man, that just feels like, were you listening to me pray? But even in those moments where I get, something where it really feels like from God, every single time, I'm like, man, hey, God, could you give me, one more thing? Like, I know that they said exactly what I asked for, and it was completely unplanned, but if one more person would say it, that would be good. And that's kind of what Moses is doing. He's like, hey, God, would you go with me? And God's like, yeah, I'll go with you. I'll give you rest. And he's like, I'm just going to ask one more time to make sure. And it shows us something about, even as we want God's presence to go with us, as we want God to be, like, to help us, especially with things future tense, I don't think there's anything wrong with continuing to just go back. You pray for something. You want to see God do something, and you pray, and maybe even you feel that, but then it goes away, that feeling. I think it's perfectly fine. What Moses is modeling here is I think what matters is that you keep going back. That in those moments where you have question, where you do wonder, I think it's okay to ask again, because his humanity is on full display, and he's doing something that we all do. But if you think about this text, especially as it pertains to the future, this people is not that different than us. Like, if you think about these people, they are a group of people who have a future before them that could not be more uncertain. I mean, God has promised them a land they've never seen. That there are people who inhabit it that aren't just going to, give it to them. And yet, even though that's true, it's kind of like us. Like, there are things in our future that we don't know. There are decisions that we're going to have to make that we're unaware of. There are things with our kids and our families that we don't know, just kind of like them. But even though that's the case, you see this prayer that Moses prays. And as he prays it in verse 15, I think it's really like, if we're feeling overwhelmed by the future, that if we can make this our prayer and truly mean it, then there can be a sense of confidence that we have as we head into the future if this is what we want. And he says this in verse 15, and it's really good. He says, if your presence does not go with me, do not bring me from here. And even as I think about this weekend, what is my heart for us as we walk out of the room? It would be that we walk out of the room with that as our heart. God, don't let me leave if you're not with me. God, don't let me go into the future if I don't know that you're going to be in the future with me. And that view, let's be honest, that's a beautiful verse. So if you're in here looking for a tattoo, I think you found it. It's right there. Put that on a coffee mug. That's going to warm your heart every day you drink that coffee, right? But as true as that is, it's one thing to say, but it's something completely different to mean. And if you say it and you don't mean it, and it's just words, then I think that it's cute, but it doesn't really do anything. It just becomes one of those cliche things that you say that just kind of goes and leaves. And as we look at the people, one of the things that becomes pretty clear from this people is that this was their prayer, and they meant it. And what we can learn from them is this, as I think that this should be our prayer as we head into the future as well, we can see how we mean it too, if we do some of the same things they did. There's a few things that we can do if we want this to be our prayer, if we want God to go with us from this place, a couple things we can do. one is that we commit to not accept cheap substitutes, that not to accept cheap substitutes. Now, have you ever bought anything and it was not an original, it was a fake? I remember when I was a kid, Oakleys were all the rage, and I think they're still popular, they're still really popular. So if you have a pair, you're doing good. But back in the day, there was Oakleys, and then there was Folkleys. You know what I'm talking about? In 6th grade, there was a kid. I'm going to say his name on the camera because I hope someone tags him in it. His name is Taylor Gruball, and in 6th grade, he would sell fake Oakleys at recess. He had a jacket full of them, and he would sell them for $10. Here's the deal. He owns a car dealership now. It was he was on the path, from the very beginning, which is incredible to me if you think about it. Taylor, way to go. But the fakes were fine, but they weren't as good as an original. I own some Folkleys, and the thing with the Folkleys is they're fine, but the O is a little different if you look closely. And not only the O is a little different, but the paint, it chips off pretty easily. And if you got some really bad ones, you wearing those things, you start sweating, man, you got raccoon eyes like anyone has ever seen before. These green little circles, right? Because it's a fake. It's not as good as the original. The real ones don't do that, but the fake ones do. And as you think about like what God's promise is initially to these Israelites, he's saying, hey, I'm going to give you something, but it's not as good as my presence. It's kind of like a cheap substitute for him going with you. And it doesn't even seem that cheap. Look at it in verse 2 and 3. He says, I will send an angel before you, but I won't go. He's like, I won't go up among you, but I will send an angel, which I think a lot of us would be like, man, that'd be kind of cool. If I could have an angel go before me and fight my battles for me, like that sounds kind of good. But at the end of the day, what they're seeing is like, an angel isn't him. And for us, as we think about the future, we've got to make sure that we don't accept cheap substitutes as we look ahead too. And it's not going to be angels probably for us, but it's going to be like the things that we tell ourselves. So when we're feeling overwhelmed about the future, what do you tell yourself as to why it's going to get better or why it's going to work out? When you're sitting there feeling overwhelmed about things that you can't see, how do you calm yourself down? Maybe you calm yourself down by saying like, well, I'm going to be successful and I'll be fine. Well, that's not the presence of God. That's success is fine, but it's not eternal. It's a cheap substitute for the presence of God. Maybe you tell yourself as you're kind of thinking like, why is this going to work out? The reason why I'm confident in the future, maybe you're like, it's because I've been really kind to people. And since I've been really kind to people, that'll come back to me. Which it honestly sounds good. You could even argue like there's something biblical about you reap what you sow, but still, even though that's true, that's not the same thing as the presence of God. You're trusting in something that isn't him. Maybe you're like, okay, no, I think that the future is going to work out for me because I've worked really, really hard. And since I've worked so hard, eventually, it's going to make its way back and it'll be fine. And even something like that, like the Bible celebrates hard work. You can read the Proverbs, it's all over there. And the 1 Thessalonians is if you don't work, you don't eat. Like all that stuff's there. But if your source of confidence is like, hey, it's going to work out because I've worked hard, well, that's not the same thing as the presence of God. That's just a cheap substitute. It could be all kinds of things, but what is that thing why are we telling ourselves things are going to work out? And if it's not, God is going to be with me, then it's a cheap substitute in your future. And the reason why I say it's a cheap substitute is because all of those things, though they are good, they're not as good as his presence. Success is fine, but the thing with success is like, it only lasts in this life. You don't get to take it with you to the next. And so if that's what you're trusting, and you're trusting in something that inevitably you won't take with you, that if you're telling yourself, well, hard work or all these other things, well, there's no guarantee behind that. There's also this reality of the future, and I think this is probably why I get so overwhelmed at times, is that you can literally lose everything. And if he's not with you, then you've lost everything. But if he's with you, then you have everything that you need. And so you've got to be really careful where you're placing your trust. And if it's not him in his presence, then you should do what the Israelites did, not accept it. Because it's not the same. Another thing you see here in the text is you see that, how do we know they meant that when they said, hey, God, if your presence doesn't go with me, don't send me from here? We know they meant it because they got rid of the things that hindered them. And in the same way for us, like we need to be willing to get rid of the things that hinder us. Like if we really say that, hey, God, I want you to go with me, then there has to be some sense of us looking at what we're carrying with us and saying, hey, if this doesn't please you, I'm going to leave it behind. And that's exactly what they did with their ornaments. Look at this in verse 5. It says, for the Lord had said to Moses, say to the people of Israel, you are a stiff-necked people. If for a single moment I should go up among you, I would consume you. So now, take off your ornaments, that I may know what to do with you. Therefore the people of Israel stripped themselves of their ornaments from Mount Oreb onward. Maybe it's just because I'm really festive, but when I think ornaments, I think of Christmas trees. It's like kind of like this vision of people like carrying like Christmas trees with them everywhere they go, like just smashing those bulbs on the ground. Like, but that's not what's happening, even though I wish it was. They're talking about their jewelry. They're things that they had of value. And it's like, this would have been their only thing of value. This is a group of people that doesn't have homes to go back to. They're wandering nomads. They're getting ready to go to a land that they don't know much about. And basically what that is their only thing of value. And what we know from the text is not only are they taking them off, but they leave it behind. But what I find to be so compelling, it isn't the fact they take it off, it's how they take it off. Because there's two different words there used in the original language. Notice that God says, take off, which is the normal word for like removing an article of clothing or removing something. Like there's nothing really to it, just kind of like whatever. But it says they stripped themselves of their ornaments. And the image there is that they passionately ripped them off because they didn't want any sense of disobedience to God. They're saying, God, we want your presence to go with us so much that if this is what you're asking, I want you to see how committed I am to do this. And when you think about this idea of like God going with you into the future, don't you think that his presence is going to be especially on people who are that willing to do whatever he says? And as I think about the things even in the future, or the things from my past that overwhelm me, usually it comes back to a time where God told me something I needed to do, or I came across it and I said no. And here you have these people, and they're saying, hey, we will take off our ornaments, our only things of value, since you asked me to do it. And for all of us, that makes this the worthy question. Like, what is that thing in your life that you just don't want to let go of, but that he's asking you to give to him? I mean, it could be all kinds of stuff. And maybe you're sitting there and God's like been telling you, like, hey, you need to get baptized. You keep telling him no. Well, you got to be willing to let go of anything that hinders. Maybe he's telling you, hey, I want you to spend more time with me. I want you to make me more of a priority, and you keep coming up with reasons why you can't. Well, he's telling you to do this. Like, if you want his presence to go with you, there's got to be a sense of showing him now that you want his presence to go with you. And if you're never doing what he says, then why would you think you're communicating anything different to him? So you have to be willing to like get rid of the things that hinder you, to not accept cheap substitutes. And then finally is this interesting idea, and it's that if you want God's presence to go with you, you got to be willing to let go of your plan. You got to be willing to let go of your plan. But if you're saying, God, I want you to go with me, then part of that is like saying that means I want to do whatever you want to do. I want your plan to rule, not my plan to rule. Realizing that there might be a moment where what you want and what he wants are completely different things. And you see that these people, these Israelites, they were very committed to letting go of their plan. Look at this. It's fascinating what God's promising them in verse 2. He's like, I'll send you an angel before you, and I'll drive out all of these nations. Go up to a land flowing with milk and honey. You're going to love the land, but I will not go with you. Basically what he's saying is he's like, I'll do everything you want. And they're like, no, though that's our plan, I'd rather have you. Though I want success, though I would rather have you. That I'm willing to let go of everything if it means you going with me. I'm willing to say, God, I'd rather have you than even have this land that you promised to my aunt. Like, that's this commitment. And so as we go back to it, I just put verse 15 up there on the screen, and I would just ask you, is that what you want? He says, if your presence will not go with me, do not send me from here. Is that the attitude of your heart? As you think about the future, is that what you want more than anything, is you want him with you? If it is, then you're willing to let go of your plan. If it is, then you're willing to remove the things that hinder you. If it is, then you're saying, I'm not going to accept a cheap substitute. But we get a confidence that they don't have because we have Jesus. And when you put your faith in Jesus, he says, I will never leave you or forsake you. That before he goes to heaven, the last thing that he says, I'm with you always till the very end. That when you put your faith in Jesus, it is a promise that he will go with you. And that if he goes with you, you get him forever. Let's pray. Father, we love you, and we're thankful for your grace. We're thankful, God, that you have always wanted to be with your people. Even as I think about this text this morning, God, I can't help but think of how that is such a beautiful reality. That you go with us, that you give us rest. And oftentimes it doesn't happen because we get in the way. We get in the way by accepting cheap substitutes. We get in the way by holding on to things we need to let go of. We get in the way by having a plan that isn't your plan. Even though it's true, God, we're thankful because you sent Jesus to come into this world, to die on a cross for our sins, to pay a price for us that we would never be able to pay for ourselves. And so, God, this morning, I just pray that we would all kind of evaluate our hearts. And if the reality of our circumstances is that we don't know Jesus, then I pray by the power of your Spirit, you would help us to see that, and that we would respond to this message by putting our faith in him. Maybe we're here and our faith is in Jesus, but there's things that we're holding on to. I pray, God, by the power of your Spirit, you'd help us to see that and help us let go of those things so that we can know you better. And so, God, we quiet our hearts and we make it our prayer, God, that more than anything, when we walk out these doors, we want you to go with us. It's in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Thanks so much for checking us out online. I just hope that whatever you saw, that it was a blessing and an encouragement to your life.
And if you'd like to give today, there are 2 ways you can do so. You can text your amount to 84321, or you can go to giving.nlspringfield.com and give that way. And if you'd like to join us in person, we'd love to have you. Our service times are at 8, 9:30, and 11.
And if you're new, on the first Sunday of every single month, we have an event called Party with the Pastors, which is a great way for you to get to know us, and it's a great way for us to get to know you. So we look forward to seeing you there.